Where did you start it?
The neck. I tried to go through the neck.
Why the neck?
In my head, that was going to be the easy way to cover. That was it.
Was there a specific reason?
To be honest, at the moment of the incident, I was going to try to kill the whole family.
I'm going to give you the legal breakdown, the psychological profile, the verdict, and I'm going to let you decide whether justice was actually served. If this story leaves you unsettled, it should. Hit that subscribe button, because this is the kind of case the news covers for one day and then forgets. We don't forget. Meet Ricardo Perez Castillo, 24 years old, U.S. Marine Corps corporal, recruiter, a man whose literal job was to sign the next generation of Americans up to serve and protect this country. He was stationed at the Grand Rapids Recruiting Office, East Beltline and Knapp Street. A clean record, no known disciplinary issues. From the outside, a model serviceman. June 14th, 2024, a Friday. Castillo's day starts like any other Marines. A physical fitness test in the morning, regular recruiter duties, a gym session with colleagues, dinner, routine, normal. Then 6 p.m. arrives, and the night shifts. He heads out for drinks with his supervisor. 2 beers, 1 tequila soda. Fine. That's Friday after work for a lot of people. But then he heads alone to a summer festival in downtown Rockford, and the night begins to unravel. He has, in his words, 2.5 more beers, except the breathalyzer that will greet him 5 hours later tells a very different story. 0.434. For reference, 0.08 is Michigan's legal limit for driving. At 0.30, most people are unconscious. At 0.434, the liver is working in emergency mode. At 0.434, medical intervention is typically required. But here is where this case stops being a story about alcohol and starts being a story about something much darker. After the festival closed, Castillo didn't call a cab. He didn't crash on the friend's couch. He wandered into the woods, through a lake. He literally swam through a lake, drank water from a puddle, wandered through a darkened gated community. And in his intoxicated mind, according to his own later testimony, he sincerely believed that the apocalypse had come, that zombies were real, that the world was ending. But here's what the body cam and court documents reveal. Within that epileptic haze, Castillo was making decisions, calculated ones. Before he ever reached the house on Ella Terrace Court, he entered a completely separate home on Oak Street, approximately 1/8 of a mile away. A homeowner, cleaning up after a dinner party, walked into his own kitchen and found a stranger standing there. That stranger looked at him and said calmly, "I don't even know what's going on, but just in case, be careful. Make sure you're armed." The homeowner slammed the door and called police. Officers responded, but did not find Castillo. He had moved on. 1 hour later, 1 mile away, one unlocked side door. Security footage from inside the home captures every step of what follows. And the footage is methodical. Not chaotic, not frenzied. Methodical. Castillo enters, barefoot in underwear and a t-shirt. He moves to the kitchen, opens a drawer, removes a knife, and he walks upstairs. This is the educational point that every viewer needs to sit with. Extreme intoxication and deliberate predatory behavior are not mutually exclusive. This is legally and clinically documented. Forensic psychologists refer to this as disinhibited predation, where alcohol removes the social and moral brakes that ordinarily prevent a person from acting on violent or sexually deviant impulses. It does not create those impulses, it reveals them. Upstairs. First door. Parents' bedroom. Door opens. Adults sleeping. He closes it and moves on. Second door. Locked. Third door. Girls. 2 girls were sleeping in that room. The homeowner's daughter in the top bunk. An 11-year-old girl, a visiting friend there for a sleepover, asleep on an air mattress on the floor. Castillo removed his underwear. He climbed on top of her, and he began to stab her in the neck. The girl's screams woke the household. The homeowner, a man who, by his own admission, had every legal right to shoot, grabbed his firearm, rushed to the room, and pinned Castillo at gunpoint against the wall. He held him there, a bleeding intruder crouched over his daughter's friend, until law enforcement arrived minutes later. He chose not to pull that trigger. He later said in court through visible anguish, "I get so much pushback for not shooting him. I'm a man of God. I realized it would have caused more damage if I did." Deputies arrived to find Castillo in the bedroom, a bloody knife beside him. The 11-year-old was rushed to hospital with stab wounds to her neck, shoulder, and arm. She survived. The surgeon who saved her life will never make the evening news, but we know. A sparse, fluorescent-lit interrogation room. A metal table. 2 chairs. A styrofoam cup. And silence. Castillo, now in borrowed clothing, sits with his hands folded. He is calm. Entirely, disturbingly calm. This is the moment that broke courtrooms. This is the moment that prosecutors would reference word for word in their closing arguments. This is the confession that doesn't sound like a confession because there is no crying, no breakdown, no remorse in the voice. Just arithmetic. Where did you start it? Castillo doesn't flinch. The neck. I tried to go through the neck. Why the neck? In my head, that was going to be the easy way to cover. That was it. Was there a specific reason? To be honest, at the moment of the incident, I was going to try to kill the whole family. The detective says nothing for 3 full seconds. The bodycam audio picks up only the hum of the fluorescent lights. He wasn't done. When detectives asked about the visible blood on his own neck, he explained that he had intended to kill himself after killing everyone in the house. And then, with no prompting, no follow-up question, just the matter-of-fact cadence of someone describing a grocery list, he explained why he had removed his pants before entering the children's bedroom. Court documents record his words verbatim. He planned to kill the girl and then violate her body. He said it out loud, to police, with a cup of coffee in front of him. And as if to close the moral loop himself, without any prompting from the detective, Castillo said, "I'm not going to justify my actions because those are my actions. I'm not going to justify that I'm innocent because I know I'm not, so what I'm going to do is pay whatever sentence I need to do." There are confessions born of guilt, confessions born of exhaustion, confessions born of strategy, and then there is this, a confession born of something that experts who have studied predatory offenders will recognize immediately. A complete absence of the internal architecture that keeps most humans from crossing the line between thought and act. He didn't confess because the detective broke him down. He confessed because he had already made peace with what he'd done. And that distinction, clinical, chilling, documented, is precisely what prosecutors would later use to argue that no amount of alcohol caused this. The alcohol only opened the door. 15 months after the attack, Ricardo Perez Castillo stood in a Grand Rapids courtroom in front of Judge Christina Mims, and he did something unexpected. He dropped to his knees. Not in handcuffs, not when the bailiff told him to. He chose it, got down on both knees in open court, looked at the families, and said, "I know I don't deserve it. I can't imagine all the nightmares. I can't imagine anything that you have felt for the past 15 months. But I'm sorry. I'm truly, from the bottom of my heart, I was a lost person. I have found God."
I know I don't deserve it. I can't imagine all the nightmares. I can't imagine anything that you have felt for the past 15 months, but I'm sorry. I'm truly from the bottom of my heart. God bless everybody. I'm sorry.
The room was not moved, because before Castillo spoke, the people who actually lived through that night had already taken the stand. The homeowner stood at the podium and told the court about the life his family has had to build from the rubble of a single night. His daughter, who was sleeping in the top bunk, now wakes in fear. They moved. They cleaned blood off the floor of their home. He said to the judge, "Someone with that type of mentality, even on alcohol, it's deep-seated in their mind. This is not just something incurred by alcohol." The victim's stepfather, a man who has worked professionally with hundreds of Marines on mental health and alcoholism, told the court he has never in his career seen anything like this. Never seen someone highly trained, willing to kill, willing to commit criminal sexual conduct in such horror. And then, the voice the room had been waiting for. 11 years old at the time of the attack, read aloud by the prosecutor because she was not required to face the man who did this to her. Her impact statement entered the permanent court record. The prosecutor reads slowly, deliberately. Victim's statement read aloud. "I remember being in a lot of pain on the floor. I remember seeing all my blood everywhere. I remember feeling warm running down my body from the blood. I remember the smell of it. I could still feel the sting of the pain. I remember being very scared and not understanding why this happened to me. I was terrified. I never would have guessed an innocent sleepover would have left me in the hospital with bad injuries." Chief Prosecuting Attorney Elizabeth Bartlett addressed Judge Mims directly. "The egregiousness with which this defendant acted is horrendous. His statements right after the crime also show a complete lack of remorse. Some of his words that he used to describe what happened are unfathomable. He admitted to the detectives that he wanted to kill everyone in the home, that he armed himself with the knife for that purpose." Judge Christina Mims then spoke. And for a moment, the courtroom heard what justice, imperfect, finite, real-world justice, sounds like when it names itself plainly. This case is disturbing on so many levels. It's disturbing that you would go into these people's home that you didn't know, that you would arm yourself in their home, that you would almost kill a child who was only trying to sleep over with her friend. What you engaged in was just what comes to mind is a real-life horror movie. It's just by the grace of God that she wasn't killed. Ricardo Perez Castillo was sentenced on 3 counts. Assault with intent to murder, 18 years and 9 months to 40 years. First-degree home invasion, 7 to 20 years. Second-degree criminal sexual conduct, 1.5 to 5 years. Mandatory lifetime sex offender registration. His Marine Corps service was formally terminated. As he was led from the courtroom, he turned and said, "God bless everybody, I'm sorry." The door closed behind him. Here is what I want to leave you with. Because this case isn't just about one Marine, one night, one girl. This case is about the anatomy of a random attack, one of the most terrifying categories of violent crime because it defies all logic of risk mitigation. The family on Ella Terrace Court did nothing wrong. They lived in a gated community. They locked the bedroom doors they thought to lock. They raised a daughter kind enough to invite a friend for a sleepover. And a stranger, someone with no connection to them, no grudge against them, no history with them, walked through an unlocked door and tried to destroy everything they had. The homeowner who held Ricardo Castillo at gunpoint said something in court that I keep returning to. He said he made the decision not to shoot. He said God told him not to. He said he feared it would cause more damage if he did, and he has faced criticism for that choice. People online, in comment sections and forums, have second-guessed that restraint. That's worth sitting with. Because his daughter, who was in that room, watched it unfold. And what her father modeled in the most violent moment of both their lives was the refusal to become something monstrous in response to something monstrous. Ricardo Castillo will be eligible for parole consideration in approximately 18 years. He will be in his mid-40s. The girl he stabbed will be approaching 30. She will have carried every year of that gap with her. The smell of blood on a bedroom floor at a sleepover she never got to finish. Whether 40 years serves justice for that is a question I genuinely want you to answer. Not from me, but in your own mind. Because that's what this channel is about. Not outrage performance, not rage bait, but the honest, uncomfortable reckoning with what justice looks like in the real world, when courtrooms and constitutions and human fallibility all sit in the same room together. The law gave this case everything it had. Judge Christina Mims sentenced at the top of what guidelines permitted. A jury of peers, through the no contest mechanism, acknowledged the horror. The victim's voice is now part of the permanent legal record. Is that enough? Leave it in the comments. I mean that. This case deserves a real conversation. Subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell, and if this case moved you, share it. Because the 11-year-old who wrote that impact statement asked for one thing, that this never happen to another girl. The least we can do is make sure the world hears her.